have been working with clients virtually for years, since essentially my business was open 5 or 6 years ago. And so when the pandemic hit, I was in a unique position because I had already figured out a lot of the stuff on how to work digitally, how to work virtually. And so I have led a few trainings, I've recognized some faces from some of those trainings, but also have done a lot of one-on-one coaching sessions and kind of quick free sessions with folks over the past 6 months, helping them get their virtual studios and digital studios up and running. One with Brian, and he's seeing that and having some questions that he saw me answer, said, you know, it'd be cool to just get you on and just let people ask you some questions and just kind of have a little Q&A session and answer some of those live, and also give people a little bit of a chance to experience what it's like to work with you, right? So that's kind of what we're going for tonight. Does that seem reasonable, Brian?
Yeah, and let me just say this, Muddy, before we go any further, if people want to get additional one-on-one time with you, what is the best way to do that?
Oh, well, that is a great question, and I should put that in the chat. So I'll put a shortcut here in the chat. So, you know, I haven't talked about this at all yet, but so there's a little shortcut link. Let me click it and make sure that it works. Yes, it does. Okay, good. And HTTPS. Whoops, I'm not typing where I should be. I'll put another link in. So that link I just dropped in there is a link to our coaching, my Whiteboard Academy's coaching page. And that will give you a chance to book a 1 hour, typically a 1 hour one-on-one session. And if you are an IFVP member, you can use the coupon code IFVP member as one word and save 30% on a coaching session. In addition, I just dropped a link in there which goes directly to my calendar. The one that just says Ask Muddy goes directly to my calendar to set up a free 15-minute call. So if you're like, I just have a quick question, I don't want to book an hour, then you can just click that and that'll just take you right to my calendar, and you can book a 15-minute call.
Cool, thanks for that. And let me just say cause I booked an hour with Muddy through the IFVP discount, and he caught me up probably, I think he advanced me 3 months in terms of like trying to figure stuff out on my own. So that is totally worth it to try to have a one-on-one session with Muddy. Okay, so here's what I'd suggest. If you've got a question for Muddy, let's do it this way. Just go ahead and go off mute, and whoever I see first, I'll call on you, and then we'll set up a stack that way. So who's got something? All right, Greg, I saw you first.
Wow. Hi, Muddy. Thanks, Brian. I have 2 overhead 8-foot shop lights, like 5,000 lumens, and I have 2 banks of 2 4-foot shop lights, 5,000 lumens, on tripods at 45-degree angles, hitting my 17-foot wall. And I'm just wondering, how do I not get banding when I do time lapse with a iPad, 2nd generation iPad, and then I use my, sorry guys, Galaxy, whatever this is, which is a good camera, but I'm getting banding. Is there a way to, I've looked at a bunch of different things, but nothing's working.
Yeah, so you're seeing like banding in the video signal. So you may or may not like the answer. So the challenge is, when you look through, and you used to see this with CRT, the old CRT monitor screens, right? If a video camera would look at an old computer screen, you would like see these bands. And it has to do with the flicker of the fluorescent light or LED source, and all of them have this inherent, I mean, they're refreshing so fast that typically we can't see it with our naked eyes. But depending on the shutter speed of the camera, that if they can get in sync, or if they're on that same kind of band, then you'll be able to see those. So one thing to try, is this just, oh, Brian, that was me, by the way.
Yeah, I just figured that out. That was my wife, by the way.
Greg, what are you shooting it with? Is it just like a webcam?
It's the iPad cam.
The iPad cam.
And then also my cell phone, you know.
Okay. So both of those, you don't have a lot of control over what shutter speeds and things like that it's using. There's a camera app, a high-end camera app that gives you some more like DSLR controls. But so one thing I'm thinking about is adjusting the shutter speed of the camera. That may help. Or moving to Europe where there's a different signal coming through the outlet, because basically it's linked to alternating current is essentially sending, I think, 60 hertz or 50 hertz or something like that signal. So the other alternative is to swap out the lights, right? That was the part I was going to say you might not like the answer to that, yeah. But to swap out the lights with LED lights.
Yeah, these are all LED. Yeah, I mean
they're not fluorescent. I mean they're fluorescent form factor, but they're LED bulbs.
Right. They're Honeywell and then some European company. They're all 5,000 lumens.
Okay. Then there's a. I'll pull it up while we're talking about. It's worth testing with a different shutter speed first. And there's the camera app I was thinking of actually probably won't be that useful because it's not like you're just shooting video, you're streaming into meetings. So, right? No. Or are you just shooting video?
Shooting video and I'm just shooting stills. That's it. I don't window on the meeting just because it's not really worth it.
Okay. Well, here's the first thing to try is to try just a camera, right? Even just a point and shoot camera or another camera to see if it's also coming through there. And if it's not coming through there, then it gives me hope that adjusting the camera settings might eliminate the problem.
Okay.
The other thing to make sure is those lights don't have dimmers on them at all, do they?
No.
Okay. Because I have a couple older LED lights that if you start to dim them down a little, the flicker gets really significant. So, but it doesn't sound like that's in play.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, I'll try that. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
I saw Hannah next. And by the way, we're going to also use chat. So if you want to, you can go ahead and type a question into chat. And again, we'll do first come, first serve. So Hannah, what do you got?
My two questions were about, I am doing live, but I'm just going through whatever the client's platform is in terms of what Greg said he's not doing, which is having a live window. So that seems to be working fine. I just raise up my the thing that my laptop's on and have it go at the actual mirror wall. But what I would really love to do is actually have an option to do that digitally. The small screen of the digital scribing options, it really cramps my style. I want to be standing up at the wall, like having a digital version of the analog. So do you have any ideas or options about that?
Oh, okay, I get it. And Hannah, did you put your question in the meetup too?
Yeah.
Okay. I completely misunderstood your question though when it was in the meetup. I thought you were wondering about, a small tablet, a recommendation for a small tablet to use, but you're saying, is there a gigantic way to do a writing surface?
Right. So my murals are 4x8 usually.
Right.
That's just because that's my wall space here. But is there a version of that is there a digital version of that?
Yeah, so there are three things I think that could work for a situation like that. Two of them are perhaps prohibitively expensive, but they are options. So Samsung and Google and Microsoft all make gigantic touch-enabled LED displays, right? It's like a 60-inch TV that you can use with a pen. So it comes with a pen and you can use with a pen. Diane Black actually has one in her studio.
I saw some stuff with hers on
Yeah.
it. I wondered what was the actual size of that.
So I believe that's a 60-inch display.
Okay.
So that's going to be the diagonal measurement. So that's what, 5 feet diagonal. So it's probably 3 feet by 4 feet. And for reference, this TV is, I think, a 50-inch TV. So you can see what it looks like with me standing next to it diagonally. So it's bigger than this. So that's the first, and there's a couple of different manufacturers, but I think the one Diane is using is by Samsung, and I can, if you remind me or put it in the chat, so I copy the chat, and maybe someone else can do this, just a reminder to find out what that model is. I can go and find it. That one's a couple $1,000s. The Google one is specifically called a Jamboard, and it really is kind of custom designed to work with their whiteboard software called Jamboard. And that thing is like 12 or 15 grand. And then Microsoft makes a giant one that's a hub, or a Surface, Microsoft Surface Hub, even more capable, but even more expensive, or right at that, tens of thousands of dollars. So that's a super expensive one. There's two other solutions that I think could work. And this is what they use in like classrooms in schools. And they're both kind of whiteboard plus projector solutions. One is more common, but I'll tell you the other one first. So the other one first that I've seen only a few times, but it really worked well, is where the whiteboard itself is smart. So and actually they have some of these too. Smart Board is a name of a brand name of a company, that the board itself has sensors in it that work with the pen. And it's a whiteboard with a USB cable coming out of it that you like loop back into the computer or the projector. But then they also have setups where the smarts are in the projector. So I actually used to have one of these at my old work, where you have a projector that shines onto the wall, and then a pen that connects to the projector, and you calibrate it, right? So it'll put a little grid up on the wall, and you click each of the points on the wall, and basically it maps out in its infrared field where the pen is, and then the projector connects to your computer with a USB essentially. So it's sending the writing signal back to the computer. And then, but basically in all of these, well, in virtually all of these solutions, what you're doing is you're basically just having a display for your computer that's gigantic and touch enabled, right? It's like having a Cintiq on your wall, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
But you still then need a software program that you're drawing in, right? So you'd still need to be using Photoshop or something else. Yeah, Brian's got shown some things on the screen here. So if you're going to go the projector route, I recommend what they call a short throw projector, or an ultra short throw projector, meaning it can be very close to the wall and shine the image almost straight up onto the wall. Whereas a traditional projector, I mean, you need it all the way across the room essentially, and then you're going to be standing in the way.
Right.
But with a short throw projector, they make a mount that comes right off the wall, and you can mount it kind of right above, scooch down a little, you can mount it kind of right above, and it'll shine down onto the wall. So that way you're not standing in the way. And I think the one that I have used was by Brother. I don't know, but that'd be another one to put in there, and I could follow up with some links to these interactive projector recommendations.
Okay.
So
those sound easiest in terms of both costs. I like the idea of the Samsung, but it's still like less than half the size of what I'm looking for, basically. The the projector whiteboard option sounds also more portable too for traveling or things like that.
Definitely more portable. If you move it, you have to kind of recalibrate it at
Right.
each space, and it needs to be a surface that's firm enough that you can kind of run a plastic pen over,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it
So
kind of
basically, you
mimics a
just need
pen tip.
a big white wall wherever you are that you
Yeah,
can.
and it really doesn't even need to be
Like-
white. White's good, but yeah, just a big, plain wall.
Blank
That's
wall,
right.
and you're literally running the surface of the pen, but you're not actually marking on the thing.
That's correct. It shows up, you project PowerPoint or you project, Photoshop or something onto that window, and then it just shows up. It's showing the screen on the wall, but it doesn't actually draw on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and so, yeah, I think that probably is the best solution. And you can get it where it's, 100 inches diagonal or bigger. So you can get it to be that same size. I will tell you though, you may find it not that satisfying. It'd be better to test this before you buy it, or at least buy it from a place that you can return it if it sucks, because it's not nearly as responsive as you would want it to be, right? There's still a little lag.
Yeah.
You don't have the fine control that you would with paper and pencil. But the nice thing is, because it's digital, it's done and ready to ship the moment,
Right.
the meeting is over. So that's nice.
Yep. And sometimes even regardless of the scale, they just want it digital anyway, period.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful. Brian, can you drop that link either in chat or to me directly about the Amazon thing you were scrolling a sec, and then Muddy, whatever links or stuff you want to drop in, that would be awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if
I'd be
someone
happy
would write
to.
in the comments, interactive projector recommendation.
I gotcha.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, and then I saw, thanks for that, Hannah. And by the way, Hannah, just because you're local, just know anytime you need something scanned, let me know.
Thanks.
So,
All right, Hannah, I have
David.
one more
Oh, go ahead.
bonus, which is there's also a way, it doesn't help during the meeting, but it helps after the meeting. There's a company called Rocket that makes these little, basically reflectors, these little like triangular reflectors. You draw on a whiteboard or draw on paper regularly, and then you put these reflectors in the corner, and when you take a picture, it's got a kind of smart app that brings it in digitally. It's kind of just a souped up way to take a picture and clean it up and get it corrected and rectified. I bought it when it was Kickstarter. I've never used it, so I can't vouch for how well it works, but it seemed like a cool idea. That's just kind of a bonus. And I mean, literally, that's probably less than $50, but that's worth a try.
And just so I understand that's like if I was literally doing an analog on the paper, but I just wanted for like chart cleanup, basically, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Brian,
All right,
is
Brian.
there a question with you as well, or do you only do the whole the whole scanning part?
So I do both, but when I was part of the Visioneering team, we actually experimented with this in a couple of different ways. I'll see if I can find it. There was a like a sheath that would actually connect to a marker, and like a pen holder almost, and you could draw with that, and it would figure out where it was. You put these things on the wall, and it would figure out kind of where it was. I don't know if it was infrared or something else. I didn't find it as precise as I would have liked. It was about, it was good to within maybe 1/4 of an inch, which if you're drawing fine detail or writing,
Yeah.
I mean, that makes it just about illegible. But yeah, what do you, maybe like, we'll do the Tom and Ray thing. What are you trying to do?
Basically, it's working so far to do the analog mural wall with the live feed. And most of my clients are used to working that way anyway. But I want to have the option to go to do a digital one, but at that scale, because the digital for me is doable on the iPad or the tablet or whatever we're using these days. But even the largest one of those is still minute compared to what we're doing when we're at the wall.
Right.
So I want to be able to stay in that flow and have that movement and freedom and space, just space.
Because you like to draw big.
To do it, yeah. And so, so that's what I'm going for, is that capacity.
No, I feel you. Here's the low budget way that I've done it. Okay, is that I've drawn big on that wall,
Yeah.
and I'll just have I call it a webcam on a stick,
Mhm.
but it's just a webcam on a tripod with a video light above it to light it up real good,
Mhm.
and I'll just move it along, pull it away, and do it that way so I can still draw large, and
Yeah,
then I'll scan it afterwards.
that makes sense. And you're doing all that analog is what you mean. That's actually on
Right.
paper? Yeah.
Right.
I'm basically doing, if I flip it around this way, this is
Yeah,
my
yeah.
wall. So that's what I'm doing. And I'll just adjust, like right now I'm at an angle because I was working on my computer. But if I'm on, I'll just bring it up. And so
Right.
you get to see it levelly, you know? So I wish I had longer wall space like some of you guys. That's the max I have right now. So I can fit in a 10-foot, well, might be able to fit another few inches, but that's 8 feet. So this is what I'm doing now to what you're saying. So I can go in and out in that way. Okay, so I'll play around with the other stuff and just stick with this for now. And then in terms of chart cleanup, is your offer only for scanning? Because some clients, if I want to reproduce the thing large scale, they might want the scan, but some of them don't want that. They just want the cleanup, like the cleaned up version, but they're not going to print it at that size, so they don't need it scanned, if that makes sense. So does your offer also include just if I sent you photos of chart cleanup, or are you only making that offer for the scanning aspect?
Let's talk about it. I'm still developing the business, the sort of the line of business. I have a scanner. I've got a large format scanner. And I was only planning for using it for myself and my own network.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Melissa Lando actually retired, who was the other place that we would send our charts to.
Jessica sold it too, so it's still there. But
okay.
Yeah,
Jessica, sorry. So
Landau Chartworks is still in business, but it's a different owner.
Correct. It's just she just sold it to Mark, and Mark was the one that was doing most of the scanning anyway.
Okay.
So he owns it, and it's still in business. And she does chart cleanup remotely. Because you're right, I was mostly using her and sending everything directly to her to scan everything. So sometimes I'm not even sending stuff to her anymore if they don't actually need to reproduce it at that scale. Mm-hmm. So I just send her the photos, and if they do, but not that many people do at that scale. Plus I send them the originals back anyway. So that's why I was wondering. So now that's part of my questions with the client. So I don't have to always send it for scanning. Sometimes I'll just do photos, and sometimes I'll do the scanning, if that makes sense.
Well, let's talk. I'd love to have like a business case for it.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks for engaging this, and Muddy, thanks for humoring us on this.
Well, this is a great topic because Brian, how wide is the scanner that you have? Is it 36 or 48?
It is well, let's see, from edge to edge, it's actually 75. Wait, that's centimeters. Hang on. I'm not good at math. 60. It's a 60-inch.
Good God, man.
Yeah, I know, right? Cool. Well, because sometimes I got to do like,
no, 75 centimeters is not 60 inches. 75 centimeters, it's divided by 2.2.
That's from the center. I was looking at the wrong number.
Okay.
So it's 60 inches across.
All right. Well, I had a similar situation where I just wasn't happy getting a chart cleaned up the way I wanted to. And so I said, all right, let me go see if I can find a local, because rather than sending it to Landau Chartworks, I want to see if I can find a local place. All of my local places in Raleigh, North Carolina, 36 inches was the maximum width of any of the chart scanners, large format scanners. And so, but I did find at my local, FedEx office, the old Kinko's, they have a 36-inch wide scanner that costs just $10 to scan in a gigantic, once you get above 3 square feet, it's $10 or something like that. And so I decided, okay, rather than trying to find a 48-inch scanner, I'm now just going to draw with 36-inch paper.
36, yeah.
Yeah, because I can scan it in at 1:1.
Yeah.
And then, I can downscale it to send it to the client, but I have that original.
Mm-hmm.
And at $10, I mean, can't beat that.
Yeah, that's a pretty good deal. Plus, it's nice to have that option and not have to then scan it later if they decide they want to go that way. So you've got it to begin with. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the new line of business that I have a client who says, we love these posters, and for the event they're great, but we're not getting as much use out of them.
Right.
we have several of them up in our conference room, but like we're out of wall space, and we'd like to show some of these off. This is a local government client. Like to show some of these off to the public. And so what they commissioned me to do is essentially we handpicked about 8 of them, and I'm going to shrink them down. I'm going to reproduce them at like 24 inches basically, and frame them or mat them, and they're going to be in their stairwell as you go up the stairs the past couple of years.
That's a really good upsell for me too, is to do a summary when I have an executive offsite with clients, is to do a 1-page visual summary of all that content, and then they have an annual one that they frame and put on their wall too, and it tells their whole story. They use it for everything. So I love that example of, those are the real-time ones you're talking about, right? Like,
yeah, those are the real-time ones.
Right.
And having a scanned image means I can cut and recompose it if I need to, or even pull some elements out because it's so good.
Okay.
I have another client that's like, I'd love a t-shirt with just like that one little graphic, that one little piece.
Yeah, definitely that. Yep.
All right, cool. Thanks, Hannah.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks,
next
Brian.
question is from David Matthew Pryor. And David, do you want to read it, or would you like me to read it?
Yeah, I'll kind of give you a context for this. So so I may be way out of my league in this room today. However, there's probably someone like me in this room as well. So Buddy, the question is more around, since COVID-19, I've really committed to kind of doing everything virtually. I've converted everything in terms of team coaching, executive coaching, facilitation, training, all that. From your experience, and I'm sure I'll probably do a one-on-one with you to kind of cover a lot of ground here, but in a basic way, what have you experienced when you're helping people along this journey, a path of going more digital and doing everything virtually, in terms of, is there a developmental kind of arc or continuum from like, I'm looking, like I'm making notes while you're talking, like whiteboard, lighting, space, standing tables, cameras, how many screens, computers, portable versus stationary, budget, priority, purpose, glossary for basic digital vocabulary, PC, Apple, like I'm making all of this list, and I'm like thinking, okay, there's probably, everyone's situations may be different. And, I'm not a graphic facilitator, though I've gotten involved in this IVP space in the last couple of months and then meeting some very cool people. So from your experience, is there generally, have you kind of noticed there's like a digital developmental journey for someone to kind of graduate from like one screen to multiple screens? Like, what have you kind of noticed in terms of patterns around how people kind of learn to kind of ramp up into this space?
That's a great question. And is this question based on you or based on you helping others through this curve, basically?
Based on me now.
Okay.
Though I'm going to be, because I'm bringing on maybe other team coaches to work with me, we're going to have to work in unison. But right now, I got to know my kind of what the hell I'm doing.
Right. Yeah. But your coaching business is not helping your coaching clients through this curve. This is
correct.
You're talking about
I'm the team coach facilitator. They all rely on me to show up.
Makes sense.
Stuff. Yeah.
Makes sense. So yes, the short answer is I have found that, and the experience that I have noticed is that the curve that people choose for themselves is not the same curve that I would recommend for them. And so what typically happens is you're on enough Zoom calls that you're like, I don't like how my image looks. I need a better camera, right? Like that's what comes to mind. But I actually have like 2 or 3 or 4 things I typically would recommend for someone before you upgrade your camera. And so the 5 areas. And so one of the services that I've added on, I've been doing this kind of work with clients for years, helping them with Zoom meetings and the technology side, but I had enough demand and new clients asking me that I've actually added technical production, helping people put on Zoom meetings, right? And like, it's one thing to have a team meeting or a board meeting, but now they're trying to do a conference or a membership meeting with 150 people and elect new board members. And so having someone else who knows the ins and outs of the technology so they can just be present in the meeting and not have to worry about running it. And as part of that service, we do a coaching offering for the presenters and speakers. And so I basically, this is like a mini version of the curve. Like, here are 5 things that you can do to look good and come across as professional on camera. And so the first is your system. And what I mean by that is your computer and internet resources. So that's the first area to improve, is to make sure you don't have a bunch of other tabs running or a bunch of other people streaming YouTube at the same time when you're on a critical meeting, so that you can have as much computer resources, because streaming video takes a lot of resources, both on your computer and on the internet. And if you don't have a great internet connection, and what's most important is the upload speed, then upgrading your internet connection might be a great first place. But and I typically recommend for our presenters and speakers that you restart your computer 1 to 2 hours, at least 1 hour, but not less than 1 hour before the meeting, in case, you know, it's got critical software updates or something. You don't want to have that happen right before. But like for this meeting, 2 hours before the meeting, I restarted my computer, just because over a day or two, you get stuff running in the background. And so I just want to, so system is the first one. The next one is lighting, and let me show you actually, I have one right here. Oh. These little painter's lights, these little painter clip lamps with an LED light bulb. And I recommend the LED light bulbs that you can change from warm white to soft white. Like, they make some smart light bulbs that you don't need like a hub. It's not Philips Hue, but it's made by Philips. It says Wiz, W-I-Z on the box. They're only like $10 a bulb, so they're almost as cheap as regular bulbs, or even $8 or $10. But you can adjust how warm or how cool the light is, so that you can match it basically to the rest of the lights in your studio, or the rest of the lights in your space. But a camera is an instrument that captures light. That's what, you know, that's how a camera works. So if you improve your lighting, you're going to improve your camera's ability to get a good, clean picture. And so then the third thing has to do with audio. People will tolerate a poor quality image, but it is really difficult if you can't hear someone well, or if they're breaking up, or it's super quiet. And so improving your audio is definitely more important than improving your video. And so for teaching or training, as long as you're going to stay close to your computer, maybe the computer audio is okay, but just moving to a Bluetooth, or I mean, not Bluetooth, definitely not Bluetooth, moving to a USB microphone, or like a headset like Brian is using, will improve your audio a lot, right? Like a Blue Yeti is a really popular USB microphone that's going to sit on your desk and give you a lot better audio quality. Now, I move around when I'm teaching and training, and so let me show you what happens real quick. All right, I've now switched to a different microphone. I'm switched to a microphone that's on a little arm right here. Watch what happens when I start to back up and I get farther away from this microphone. It gets quieter and tinnier really, really quickly. So when I'm across the room, you can't hear me nearly as well as when I'm right up on it, right? If I'm right up on the microphone, it's going to sound really good. So if you're going to be moving around, consider a lapel microphone. So I now switch back to my lapel microphone. So regardless of where I'm moving in the room, it's still only 6 inches away from my mouth. So that's number 4, audio. And then finally, no, that was number 3. Number 4 is just your space. This is simple. just making sure you have your space is not cluttered where you are seated, because it helps you not be cluttered, and find things and just kind of prepare your space, but also think about what's behind you. This little window, this little picture, this is our only view into your world. And so whatever is with you in this picture is kind of part of our experience of how you come across in the video. So if you've got a bunch of messy stuff in the background, you come across with that vibe. And if you have got really professional stuff or whatever, your backdrop is a chance to, it should support you and your message, right? So the way that I have mine supports me and my message. Having a graphic behind you, if you were a graphic recorder, might be a way to like have that come across. So just thinking about what's behind you. Taking some screenshots while you're in a Zoom meeting. So you just you can kind of blow it up and look at what's behind you or see what other people are seeing. Then finally, number 5 is camera. And the first step is to get the camera position up so it's about eye level. That just feels more natural. And so you're not kind of looking up at people, and you don't have to look down, but getting the camera up towards eye level, and then improving the camera. And the steps of improving a camera are first a USB, like an external Logitech camera. You know, something like this is going to be a much better image than the built-in camera. The challenge, of course, is that finding webcams is really hard and really expensive right now. Beyond a USB webcam and the Logitech C920, 930, those are old standbys. The Logitech Brio is their top of the line, which is really, really nice. Or then switching to a different external camera altogether, whether it is something like, whoops, that didn't work. Whether it's something like, oh, I know why, because I have it open in another window. I was going to switch to a GoPro. That was one of the things I helped Brian with, is get a GoPro up and running as a webcam, which I think he has. He has there. He's showing. There it is, right? So have a webcam, have a GoPro, which is a super wide angle, which can be useful in some cases. Or finally, kind of the very top end and the very last thing I would recommend is using a dedicated like DSLR camera or mirrorless camera, because it will give you that shallow depth of field that kind of looks really professional and looks really crisp. But now you're talking about several $100s for a camera. So anyway, hopefully that wasn't too long of an answer, but helpful.
No, that was very helpful. I think it got me to think about doing this in stages or like prioritizing a couple of things, and also not investing in like, I'm kind of right now kind of seeing all the stuff and I'm like, get this, get this, get that, get this and everything. And I'm like, no, that was a waste of money, David. You know, like that, you don't really need that right now. So I think that was very helpful for me to kind of think about it in a system prioritization way. And then I'll gradually, it's not like it's urgent, but it's definitely in front of me, just in the world that we're going to work in now, or at least that I'm working in. So thank you.
Absolutely. And if you want to connect directly, we can kind of talk about specifically where you're at and get you some specific recommendations too.
Sure.
Cool. Thanks, David.
There's a question in chat from Tanya, and I don't know, did you mean for that to go to me or to Muddy?
I just wanted to get clarification on the name of the microphone that Muddy mentioned.
That was the boom mic, I think, right?
No, it was
Yeti. Blue Yeti.
Lapel mic or something like that.
Oh, lapel.
Okay.
Lapel microphone is a generic name for this. It's either called a lavalier microphone or a lapel microphone, and it basically is just a tiny little microphone that clips to your shirt or clips to your
okay. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, that's what I mean by that.
Okay, super. Thank you. Ryan, is somebody else on for asking a question, or can I just tag on?
Go for it. Yeah, tag on.
Okay, so I'm it was very helpful what you shared with David. I want to add on to this in terms of not spending a lot of money and not being a graphic recorder or a visual facilitator by training myself and just using it in a similar fashion that David does. If you would say, again, I'm not using it on a regular basis, it's only occasionally, and I want to more experiment with it with client work. If I have to choose an additional camera to showcase my work or help clients see what I'm doing, and again, from the perspective that I'm not using it on a 24/7 basis, and it's not my prime profession either, what would you recommend me doing or investing in or testing or trying out?
Good question. And I have wonderful news for this question is you probably already have that camera in your pocket, and that's your phone. So, our phones all have, pretty good cameras in them these days. And so I'll show you a way that you can use your phone as a camera for an online meeting or as a secondary camera to showcase your work. And it may end up being a much better image than kind of your primary face camera. Is that cool?
Sounds awesome. Let's go.
All right.
Let's do it.
So I have an old, I'm going to switch my camera right now, my camera view in Zoom to my document camera. So it takes a second to come up, but I've got an old iPhone. This is like an iPhone 5 maybe. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use this to show it to you. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit so you can see it better. No. Okay. And maybe you can pin it or switch to speaker view if that's helpful. Okay, so here's the meeting ID for this meeting. So I just opened the Zoom app. So actually, first thing I should do is preface what I'm going to show you. So in Zoom, you can have more than one device connected to Zoom. If you do that, so I guess I should ask, are you specifically talking about in an online meeting, right?
I'm talking about, being the facilitator in an online meeting for the training session or as a facilitator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So you can have more than one device connected to the meeting. So what we're going to do in just a minute is I'm going to have my phone, I'm going to join my phone into the meeting, and it's going to show up as another participant. Okay, so we'll have me here, and then we'll have my phone connected as its own little participant. It'll be called Muddy Phone, right? And so this is a really useful way to do this. And I've worked with a number of trainers to do this kind of in different contexts, because then you have a little mobile device that you can bring up to the board and show the board, or you can look at your work. It's a lot easier to move this around and show them different views than it is. Brian's got a second device connected right now, right? So he just connected his phone. Now, here's the thing that you want to be concerned about. When you connect more than one device to the same meeting, you run the risk of getting an audio loop, an audio feedback loop. So this is why I'm going to just show you the trick to make sure that that doesn't happen. So if I come back to my document camera now and I'm on the phone, so I open the Zoom app and I'm going to type in, I said join a meeting, I'm going to type in the meeting, 843-198 88393. Okay, now I can put in my name, it's called Muddy Phone, and then here's the trick. Right here, there's an option. It looks blurry on my screen. Let me see if it looks okay here. Pin it to this first screen. Okay, it looks okay right there. So there's an option right here on the sign-in screen that says don't connect to audio. I want to turn that on. I don't want my phone to connect to audio at all. It's only going to connect, it's only going to be video. So I'm joining that now. Join with video. It's face down on my desk, so it's not going to see anything yet until okay. Oh wait, I have to wait for the host to let me in.
I did.
All right, here it comes. So I now have, let me remove this pin. I now have a second device. I'll put it over here so it's clear that it's on the side. So here's my phone. It's the front-facing camera. But if I switch this around to the rear-facing camera in Zoom, and I can do that. Okay. So Brian has showed us another useful thing, but to be aware of. So because this second device doesn't have audio, it's never going to be the speaker in speaker view, because the speaker view changes to whichever the audio is coming from. And so in order to show this, you have to spotlight it. Or you can just teach your audience how to pin a video, but you can spotlight it for everyone to make sure that this camera comes through. When that happens, I've got a little notice on my phone that says, whoops, I've got a notice on my phone. Oh, it's already spotlighted. That says, the host wants to spotlight you. Are you sure you don't want to join audio? And like the big red button is to join audio, but I don't want that because that's going to create this feedback loop. So I just say later. So now this second device is spotlighted. And if I tap on it, I can spin the camera around. Boop, boop, boop. Brian, go ahead and turn the spotlight off for a second if you would. And there we go. Okay, so on the phone, when you tap the screen, there's a little button in the corner that lets you flip the camera around. So now I'm using the rear-facing camera, right? If you see the main Muddy view up here, I'm using the rear-facing camera. I can't see the screen, but this is a much better camera. So what I would do is I would have that camera pointing down. And now if that camera is pointing away from me, I can see the screen because I'm looking at the back of it. So I would have, and if you get, I actually prepared for this very situation, even though probably making you nauseous. What you would want is to put your phone in a little holder. So something like a little gooseneck phone holder like this that you can clip on the desk and then stick your phone into it, then that can shine down on the desk. So now I essentially have that device like a document camera.
That's super helpful. Really, that's
right?
amazing.
So, and if you put it on a tripod or something like that, right, you can have it pointed at the wall or whatever as you're drawing. So two things to remember are, you know, you're definitely going to want to, and you can turn the spotlight off, Brian. You're definitely going to want to use the not connect to audio, so you don't get that feedback loop, and then to use a tripod or some device to hold it more stable.
Yeah, and just to that point, if you don't mind, so I really don't like goosenecks because they wobble just a little bit, right? And so what I like is I'll show it on my, all right here, I guess I'll have to do it this way. So I've just got like this little C-clamp that can open and close, right? And this just clips right onto my phone like that. And what it does for me is it gives me this bolt at the bottom, which I can screw onto the edge of or the top of a tripod, just as if I was putting anything else on it. And what I like about that is that that's super stable. Okay, unless you drop it.
So I'd love to just take this one step further, because there's a lot of really good applications for something like this. And what Brian is showing with having something that's a kind of dedicated phone clip, right, or phone holder that has a tripod thread on the bottom. And what Brian is using there as a tripod is actually a mic stand, I believe. So this is a microphone boom arm or microphone boom stand, which can rise, but also the boom part of it is, it has this arm that you can adjust separately, right? So you can imagine having a microphone on here and But if you get a little adapter for the end, you can turn the end of this into a tripod thread, basically. So then you can attach your phone holder to this. And what's useful about a setup like this, not only is it more stable than having your phone in a gooseneck arm. A gooseneck arm does definitely wobble. The other advantage is you can have this extended off this is sitting on the floor. So the gooseneck is still attached to the table, but I can have this kind of off my workspace and pointing down at my, pointing down at my desk. It's not kind of zoomed in the right orientation right now, but if I move my desk, and you can see I don't know if you can see that or not, but I'm shaking my desk, but the image is not shaking at all because this tripod now and this phone is on a boom arm. And very quickly, and these microphone boom arms, or these microphone boom stands, are super cheap and super small, but really versatile. This is essentially what all of my lights are on, and everything else are these little mic stands. A microphone, by default, the threads on the top of a mic stand are different. They're big fat threads, different than what's on a tripod. So you need something that converts the thread, either something integrated like this that screws on and then immediately has a little ball head and attachment to attach your camera on here, or a two-part solution, which is what's on this one, where I have the adapter that goes from mic stand to 1/4 inch, and then I have separately a little miniature ball head that lets me adjust the angle of this. But with a microphone stand and a little adapter and a phone holder, you've got a really versatile solution, which now you can move around the room and use in lots of different ways. So thanks for letting me expand on that a little bit.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Don't unplug your phone yet because I want to see your space later.
Okay.
Buddy, let me just give a small alternative, if that's all right.
Please.
Oh wait, let's do a tour first. I'm gonna spotlight your video. Why don't you give us a tour? Wow, it's like the Enterprise.
It is like the Enterprise. Okay. So when I'm on an online meeting, this is where I'm sitting. Now, notice, talk about, I said, be mindful of what's behind you. My regular camera, which now you'll have to find somewhere smaller since my other one is spotlighted, but where it's just called Muddy, the one you were seeing before is looking out into the room. This one, which is right over my shoulder, is now looking towards my desk. So I have a document camera sitting right here on a little arm. I have my main microphone, which I use on a daily basis, on a little swivel arm right here that I can move in. I actually have a little magnetic light clipped underneath that. They sell these things as like a little closet light, but that's what illuminates my desk to help the document camera see, is a little lamp that's underneath that I just have kind of clipped magnetically. So then I have a computer that has two main screens. It's a laptop that's sitting right here, and then it has an external monitor right here. And this is the one that's right in front of me. This is the big monitor. This is the one I'm primarily using. This laptop happens to be built for gaming. I don't game, I never have, but a lot of the technology we're using now for streaming video online, and the kind of machine you would want to buy for doing this, is one that's built for gaming, because it has powerful video cards and enough horsepower to be able to have this kind of streaming gaming. As a result, it had like 3 different ways to connect to external monitors. So I have a regular, this one is, HDMI, but it also had another way to connect it. So I have a third monitor that sits on top of my shelf over here that I don't use on a regular basis. What I keep on that screen is my Nest camera. So I've got a view of the front door. So I feel like I'm just kind of connected to the outside world. And there's also a camera that looks out on the front yard or the backyard. So in fact, most of the time I have that camera flipped on so I can actually hear the birds chirping and stuff outside. And I've got basically like might as well be a window on this screen right here, which is what I keep there. Then my camera is mounted on a little arm right above my monitor. And this is another trick, we never got to it, but if you're on a Zoom meeting, what I recommend is that, and you can see I'm moving my screen around right now, is that you bring your Zoom window right up under your camera. So when you're looking at the Zoom meeting, people still feel like you're mostly looking at them. And that way, when you are looking directly at the camera, you can also see the Zoom meeting out of your periphery pretty easily. So that's the main setup. I happened to stumble upon a super tiny little additional LCD, like 7-inch LCD screen that's sitting up here that I'm experimenting with, having that connected to my document camera so I can still be looking at you and know what my document camera is seeing, because I don't have any other way of necessarily knowing what my document camera is looking at. So I'm experimenting with this. This is a test.
All right, let's hit some of the other questions. I'm going to stop spotlighting your video. Thanks for the, oh wait, actually, Muddy, what's that thing? It looks like an app switch between your two stands right there.
Oh, yes.
In front of your, that way, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll put it under my document camera so you can see it.
Thank you. That thing in your hand, yeah.
Yeah, you don't need to spotlight this video. I'll put it here under my document camera. Okay, this is called a Stream Deck, and a Stream Deck is basically just a programmable set of 16 buttons. It's a USB device, and it has a companion application where you can choose what these 16 different buttons do. So on my home screen, it's like, well, this one goes directly to PowerPoint, or this one goes directly to Google Keep. That one will bring up so you can open software applications. You can switch between cameras. Here's my mute button. And now I'm unmuted. Now, when I host a lot of meetings, so I also have the mute everyone else button right next to it. Now, it won't do anything right now since I'm not the host, but that would normally send a shortcut signal to mute everyone else. I could turn my video off and back on with those quick buttons. And then finally, what I have set up is, so I have a screenshot button, right? If I want to take a quick screenshot, boop. Now I just took a screenshot. And then the last thing is that I actually set up some shortcuts to be able to forward the slide, next slide, and previous slide. There's actually a trick to this. Now, of course, if you have a PowerPoint show active and you're just advancing the slides, right? Just a forward button or back button, left or right arrow, that works fine and dandy. But if you happen to click off anywhere else so that the PowerPoint slideshow is no longer the active window, those buttons don't work. Forward and backwards don't do anything. So that's actually, those buttons are actually a multi-step shortcut that the first thing it does is it makes PowerPoint the active window again real quick, and then it does the forward or back. So
awesome.
There's some special magic in that one, but this thing is really, really handy.
Thanks for that, Muddy. Okay, so getting back to the questions, Carrie says, I'm interested to learn some hacks on Microsoft Teams, please.
Good. Well, we've got a couple folks here who have some experience with Teams. Tell me what kind of hacks you're thinking, or what kind of problems or challenges you're running into. Can you share anything
you
more?
Mind going off mute? And Carrie, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. Maybe away from keyboard. Let's move on to the next one. We can come back. Dawn had a question about, oh, Hannah had one earlier around mic stands and tripods. I wanted to say, so this is what I've got is actually not a microphone stand. It's a lighting
Okay.
stand, but it's close. So it's a lighting stand. And the thing is, when you use a lighting stand, you don't have to worry about that conversion from the microphone size to the typical, camera size that you've got.
1/4 inch, 1/4 20.
Yes. And I don't know about you, but I buy these things like by the dozen. Just these little universal ball joints. You can stick these onto something, put
Mini
a
ball
webcam on
head.
it, put a light on it. You're ready to go.
Okay. Maybe that's what I need, because I do have a camera tripod that I have my painting easel set on with the palette and stuff. And that has a, I was looking at have Gorilla Clips and stuff, but they don't have the screw in for the phone, but they don't have the screw in thing that you're just talking about, right? With
Yeah, this thing?
Yeah.
Right.
So maybe I really just need a link for that thing, that little adapter thingy, basically, rather than the whole shebang.
I'll see what I can do.
Thank you.
Dawn had a question about lighting. Dawn?
Yeah, thanks. So I have a small space that I don't have a lot of flexibility to put up a bunch of mic stands and things like that. And I've been experimenting with so many different lights over all these months. I can't do anything about this window behind me. I know you were suggesting those clip lights, which I may be able to do. But I found that the ring lights just with my glasses create a terrible glare in my glasses. I find if I put lights to the side, I can't quite find the position for them in my tight space. If I put something in front of me, my eyes are exhausted by it. So I just wondered if you have any thoughts on how to help when you don't have the ideal space to do these things. Is it the light bulb more than the position too? Is an interesting question. So.
Yeah, and thanks for asking that. It's a good question. I am, and what I dropped in the link, just real quickly, I dropped a link for our gear page, which has all of my kind of favorite gear on there. It's categorized. It's mostly text at the moment. I've been thinking to add some visuals. Duh, I'm a visual learner. But anyway, there's a section on little mini tripods and tripod heads and stuff like that. So some of my favorite links are on there. All right, so good question, Dawn. And so when it comes to lighting, there are two things that come to mind. So first is positioning of lighting. So I wear glasses also, and reflection can really be a trick, or it can really be a challenge with lighting. So what I've heard recommended and works for me, and I have been continuing to recommend to others, is 45, if you're going to use a light to the side, 45 degrees to the side and 45 degrees up. So where I'm sitting, I want that light up there and or up there at an angle. And that helps it not come on my glasses as much. Now, if I look right towards it, you can see it. But if I look towards you, it's not as noticeable. I mean, it comes up from time to time as I move my head around, but it's not as noticeable. If you had a ring light in front of you, you would want to have it tipped down at a 45-degree angle. So it's coming down at you, and that will help with the glare on your glasses. So that's the first thing, has to do with positioning. Again, it's somewhat space limited, but does the wall in front of you have enough room that you could put a light, No, you're shaking your head. My lights sit on my desk.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of room on my desk either.
So
I guess I need to buy a new house.
Well, no, I don't think so. Let me show you. Actually, I just about have it pulled up right here. Full size backdrop stand. Okay, so let me pull up the tripod stand I was thinking of, which is, so the one that I'm using that on my tabletop, here it is. All right, let me share my screen to show you this guy. Share screen, and I'll share screen one. Okay, So this is the stand that I'm using for my light. So it basically takes up no room on the desk because it's flat. And so it just hugs around the corner, right? I just kind of move it so it sits around my thing, but it also extends straight up. So I have a little guy like this that sits on my desk, and the light now can be raised up. So it really doesn't take up almost any floor space or desk space at all. So that's a potential way to get some area on your desk. Now you could also putting that link in right now. You could also potentially mount a light to the wall. So these clip lights, there's two styles. There's one that has the clip, but the other style has a plastic clip. And on the side of the plastic clip is essentially a screw hole, like a keyhole, right? The key-shaped hole that you would like hang a picture with or something. So you can put a screw or a nail in the wall and hang this light on so it's actually mounted on the wall. So that way it wouldn't take up any desk space at all. But all of these things have to do with position. The second recommendation has to do with how to soften the light. So a light, you want it to go through some kind of diffusion, because in the world of photography, they consider lighting to be either like harsh light or soft light. And it's the difference between like standing in bright sunlight and having those kind of like harsh shadows, or like standing under a tree where the branches kind of filter the light a little bit. It's just a softer, evener light. And the same thing goes for LED lights. Now, in a photography studio, they might have these big soft boxes on the lights, if you can picture that. But talk about space, those things take up a ton of space. So the trick and the hack is a frosty shower curtain. A frosty shower curtain, which you can buy a 2-pack for $6. Just cut a little piece of it out and wrap it around the light, 1 layer or 2 layers, and that all of my lights essentially have shower curtains over them, and that's what makes it a softer light. That also helps with glare and reflection. So
yeah, I use the one time I used the fancier napkins, paper napkins,
yeah,
and rubber band, and it helped. But yeah.
And there was a question about, doesn't that melt? So I initially used wax paper and tissue paper, and then I upgraded to the frosty shower curtain. But all of those I use with LED light bulbs. So the LED light bulbs stay cool to the touch. I would not recommend this with an incandescent light bulb because they do get too hot. And then actually, one of the things on the gear list, the other thing that I found, actually one of my lights, this one on the floor behind me, they make a little $10, it's called like a sock, a light sock, basically made for a clip light. And it's basically a round piece of shower curtain with an elastic band around it. You just kind of stretch it over and it kind of holds on to the light. But you can buy one pre-made. That's when you're getting really fancy. So
Thanks, buddy.
all right.
I've got a question from Deb. She says, I'd like tips on how to get a decent picture of analog work to share with clients. I'm using my iPhone. I am never happy with the quality of the color and crispness. It's like the camera magnifies the image to show all the flaws. And Deb, I noticed you just went off mute. Do you want to expound on that?
Yeah, no, I think that's really the question. I have a lot of questions, so I'm gonna have to book some time with you, Muddy, but that's the one thing I'm noticing. I've just got a contract with a client and helping them revamp their business processes. And so what I did was, because the processes were just so confusing, is I actually just started mapping them out visually, and they were super excited about it. So right now I'm still working analog. and I'm just finding that I'm so disappointed in and I'm sure it's paper, it's how I'm using the iPhone, the lighting, all that kind of stuff. So any tips would be great.
One quick follow-up, and I definitely have some ideas for you, but one quick follow-up is, are you just taking a picture with your iPhone and then sending them that picture, or are you taking a picture and doing anything with it, or using an app, or are you trying to kind of somehow clean that picture up at all?
All I'm using is like I have the cam scanner. I've tried that, and also just the photo editor that comes with it with the iPhone when you take a picture. So that's as far as I've got. And I know I've talked to people who use Adobe. I did a trial, and I just feel like I don't have time.
Yeah, the learning curve is pretty steep.
Learning
for
curve
Adobe.
is, yeah. So something that gets me off the ground quickly, and then down the road I can learn more complicated tools.
Yeah, right on. Well, you'll be happy to know that for the past 5 years professionally, I've been delivering client work directly out of Cam Scanner. So that's what I use. And I've had people ask on the graphic facilitation Facebook group, like, how do you get such a good picture out of Cam Scanner? And the trick has to do with the lighting. So here's what I found with taking pictures of analog work is that in my experience, you want even lighting is the most so good lighting is like the whole category. That's the whole idea. Even lighting is the most important aspect. So I found in conference rooms where they have can lights, they create these hot spots. They create these kind of bright spots on the image. And so having lighting where some areas are brighter and some areas are darker is like the number one challenge. So even lighting, even if it's dark, I'd rather it be even. Even better is even and soft. So I told you I have a couple of lights here. Even if I shine those lights at a picture, especially because it's white, I'm on white paper, it's going to create spots that are brighter and less bright. So the best way to do this is to bounce the light. And so I'm grabbing just a piece of foam core here right now. So what I'll do after an event is I'll set up my picture, or I'll set up my image, right? So I just have a little flip chart here. And so what I'll do is set up my lights to bounce off of boards. So I'll put kind of a diagonal board on either side of my art and have the light bounce off of this foam core. And what happens is that light spreads out and becomes a much even softer lighting across the whole image. And so that's the best results I have. So if I'm home in my studio, I'll set up a couple of just pieces of foam core to bounce the lights off of. Excuse me. If I'm on location with a client at a conference, and I'll try and find a place where there is more even lighting, like a hallway or something where the lighting is kind of more spread out or more even. So, and sometimes kind of turning it towards a window or away from the window. So those are the best kind of quick tips that I can give you, have to do with even soft lighting. And I get really good results directly out of Cam Scanner, even though theoretically it's like a tiny little image size. So it's got to be pretty low resolution compared to what would happen. But I've tried other techniques. I mean, I've used a higher end camera and taken, 20 megapixel photos and then taken those into Photoshop. And I spend a lot longer and I get about the same results. So
yeah,
Okay,
hopefully that's
good to
helpful.
know.
But
Yeah.
other people
just,
probably have good recommendations too.
I got one thing I'd like to share with you real quick. So there's actually an app for this, and it's actually called Green Screener. And so what it is let's say that this is a chart that I drew, and it's intended for finding hotspots on green screens. But if you download, it's for this is an iPhone, but pretty much anything that's intended for green screens and finding hotspots on green screens, if you use that, you can see I got a hotspot right here, and then I got another one right there on my wall. You can use that to just see if you've got any problem points.
That's great, thanks. And then just one final question, because my office is in my basement, and so I roam around my house and get equally crappy photos. So is it okay? Like, I love that idea, the foam core and the using your flip chart stand. I could easily do that kind of stuff. Would it, and as long as the lighting's okay, the fact that I'm in my dungeon isn't necessarily such a bad thing?
Yeah, I would say that should be fine.
Great, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Let's go back to Carrie. So she is unable to use audio, but here's what she had to say about Teams. She said, in our organization, we can't use Zoom, only Teams. So if you have any tips, it would be great. I'm preparing our first online training, so any help would be great.
So I would love to hear from Brian if you have anything to start with, because so first of all, recognize that Teams was a bit of a challenge, but you're not alone. A lot of people are in the situation that you're in, that they're we're on Teams, we're a Microsoft, company that uses Microsoft, so we're locked into Teams. It doesn't have the same capabilities, and so we're trying to make the best of it. And I've been part of some of those discussions, but if I remember correctly, Brian, you've also worked with clients in Teams and had a little bit more maybe experience in this than I have.
Yeah, and I find most of my time spent in Teams is spent trying to figure out how do I do these things that Zoom just does automatically. The one thing that Teams doesn't have, although they keep saying that they're working on it, is breakouts. And in my facilitation, I use heavy use of breakouts. So there's 2 hacks for that. Okay, one of them is that you can, in using your calendar function, you can actually create multiple meetings and have people. You have to announce people. Okay, you have in your calendar, there is another meeting invite that's there, and that's when we use breakouts. That's where we want you to go. Now, the nice thing about that is you can pre-assign breakouts, and Zoom is a little bit weak with pre-assigning breakouts. The challenge is that people have to self-monitor their time, and they have to know that when is it that they're supposed to leave and when is it that they're supposed to come back. So that's one way that you can do it, is to use multiple calendar invites. The other way that you can do it is you can actually have people inside a meeting generate chats, okay? Because there's channels similar to Slack within Microsoft Teams. So if you have 2 or 3 people start a chat with those 2 or 3 people, they can all click a button and that chat will become a video breakout room. And you can actually have that video breakout room happening at the same time as your other meeting. So there are some, I've seen this, you can have some people who have 3, 4, 5 meetings going on all at the same time.
Yeah. Brian, you can just set up channels and name them breakout room 1, 2, and 3, and then tell them which breakout room they're going to, and they hit meet when they get inside, and they've simultaneously having a meeting. So
Tanya's got another question for you. Is the ring light supposed to shine on you or away from you?
Well, that's a great question. And it can actually work either way. It's designed to work towards you. It's designed to shine towards you. However, the theory that I was talking about with bouncing a light off of a piece of foam core to help a more even light across a drawing, the same thing works when you bounce any light off of a larger surface. It creates a larger light source that gives a more even light, but it spreads out more, so it's not as bright. So you need kind of a powerful light to do this, but if you have a white wall, for instance, behind the light. If you turn that light and shine it against the white wall, it's going to bounce off and still illuminate you, but it'll be a little bit more of an even light. The biggest thing to worry about is then the shadow. Make sure there's no kind of shadows that are being caused by that. But great question.
Next one's from Ashanti. She says, any tips on doing live stream graphic recordings? It seems like everything being discussed would more or less apply.
Yeah. So if you're available to come off of mute or want to add anything more, we can. So there's a couple of tips that I would give. So the first one is to remember to take a breath, because it's a little bit more stressful. I have found in my experience, it can feel a little bit more stressful to be trying to do this online. And so, like, to the extent that you can lower the bar for yourself and give yourself a little bit more grace. But I see you're on camera now, so if you're able to, just jump off mute and just give me a little more context.
Yeah, so I just finished doing a graphic recording, and I noticed another graphic recorder was doing it live on Twitch. And so I'm just curious about it now. And I was like, maybe I should start experimenting with that. And just in thinking about doing it, I'm like, what else should I know? Or what don't I know? And I'm sure I'll figure it out when I actually start to experiment. But since I have this opportunity with you, I'm just thinking, I just thought I would ask the question. Yeah.
Yeah, good question. And we actually have someone in our community who uses Twitch. So the biggest question is around whether the intent is to live stream into the meeting or to live stream to a parallel or a different source, right? So a lot of the things that I had been sharing in the graphic facilitation group earlier in quarantine had to do, and this is a big question that a lot of us, are still wondering, is how do you share your iPad as your webcam?
Mm-hmm.
Screen share function is easy, but if you are sitting in on a meeting to graphic record, it's not your meeting. You're not screen sharing. You just want to be a participant, but
Right.
have it show up. So one kind of base level is that if you're trying to stream into the meeting, is to either have your iPad or a webcam shining on your work to be able to share into the meeting. And I'll show you something real quick if I share my screen.
Mm-hmm.
So when I have my studio, now this is a kind of panoramic photo, so it looks bigger than what my space actually is. But so here's a 4-foot, I guess this is a 3-foot piece of paper, but an 8-foot wide board. And this is a camera on a tripod, but there's also a second camera in the center of the room up tall, which is a GoPro.
Okay.
And what happens is if you see that TV screen in the background, I'm connected to the meeting with 2 different devices. So one device is zoomed in to where I'm working.
Mm-hmm.
And the GoPro is locked off on the whole wall. So what happens is the GoPro, this tall one here in the middle, sees the whole room, and people can kind of see, okay, here's the whole drawing, and there's Muddy moving around within the space. And that one is not connected to audio. That's kind of like it's over here now, kind of like my phone as a second device with no audio. And it just says like Muddy, wide angle. And then my main camera, which is connected from my main computer, I kind of zoom in to the place where I'm working so people can see more detail, of the work or what I'm drawing. So that's one if you're kind of streaming into the meeting. And the same thing could happen with an iPad, that I could have my iPad stream into the meeting.
Okay.
The challenge is that, and people may have experienced this, is that the resolution is not as great when you're coming into a meeting, because we talked about how much horsepower it takes to run, streaming video. So now if we've got 20 people on the screen,
Mm-hmm.
Zoom compresses those video feeds down to a lower resolution video feed. So Zoom essentially is throttling the resolution. It's downscaling the resolution.
Yeah.
So that's the main reason why someone would stream to an alternative or parallel platform, be streaming to Twitch, because I can send a higher quality feed to Twitch, and then people have the link that they can go and see that, you know, on a second screen or whatever, so they can. So that's the main reason to use a second service, and is for resolution. So
Maybe
Ryan,
that's a
Thank you.
really important insight right there, and I just want to underscore that, because I had been trying to figure out how to get people that work remotely or digitally into the room, so to speak. And we would do these tests where it was like me and then the graphic recorder, and they would look awesome. You know, the resolution was phenomenal because it was just the two of us. But then we'd launch into the meeting where we've got 40, 50, 60, 100 people. And then bam, it just looked terrible. And everything was exactly the same except for the meeting. I'm like, what is it? Is it just bad luck? But that throttling, I mean, I wish that Zoom was a little bit more explicit about it, because it took us forever to figure that out. So yeah, thinking about like Twitch, thinking about YouTube Live, and Ashanti, if you want to geek out later, I actually use Twitch myself. So if you want to talk about it, and by the way, looking at streamers and gamers who stream what they do is a great way of getting some ideas. Typically, your classic streamer format is you've got, you know, a little guy down in the corner and he's playing the game, and then the game is behind him. And I
Right.
saw that and I was like, dang, I want to figure out how to do that, right? I want to be on camera and have the PowerPoint or whatever it is, maybe Sketchbook Pro, whatever it is I'm drawing in behind me, so that you still have that connection to the
Yeah.
person that's there. Now, Zoom has just come out with this. I don't know, you can all try this out if you want to, but Zoom, if you've updated to 5.3, there's a new beta feature that's in Zoom. If you click on share your screen down at the bottom, and then click on advanced, and if you've updated, there'll be something on the far left that says PowerPoint as virtual background. And so it'll ask you, it'll say, okay, where's your PowerPoint? It'll ask you to find it wherever it is on your hard drive. And then using the virtual background, the same way that Tanya's doing right now, it'll project that behind you, sort of like a weatherman, kind of like we're talking about, like with those streamers.
Okay. Cool.
But yeah, you can get some great ideas from watching other people that have been doing this a lot longer than we have.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. Dawn,
So
I think your
very
question
quickly
was,
on that
go ahead, buddy.
idea, and you know, if you use a green screen, you can get really good results with that. And also, it's important to note that
I think Muddy froze.
what Zoom is actually doing with
Try it now, Muddy. I think you're
Am I
back.
back?
There you go.
Okay. All right. Now I can take a breath. All right. What Zoom is actually doing is it's converting your slides to images, and then it's loading those images in as a virtual background with the ability for you to move through them. The reason that's important to know is because you lose any transitions. It's not actually showing the PowerPoint slide. You don't get any transitions between the slides, or if your slide has like elements that you want to show, like animations, you lose all that because it just turns it into an image file. So good to know, but really cool feature.
Thanks for that, Muddy.
So the other thing that I'm doing, so right over my shoulder, I moved my big TV, I rolled it up, so it's now over my shoulder. And if I'm teaching or training, this is the other thing that I'll do, is I'll have slides on little cards and have the TV over my shoulder. So my document camera is showing on the TV screen, but now it's just one camera angle. So you, like as Brian was saying, you still get the connection of the person and the game, or you know, the content. So in this case, you still see me, but you're also seeing, if I were drawing right here, what I would be drawing too. So that's another idea, is to actually bring a kind of physical screen in behind you, physical TV screen or something. So
Muddy, what kind of document camera do you use?
this is an Elmo document camera. That is the Elmo MO-1.
Okay, because I've heard of that one, and then the IPEVO V4K is the other one. Do you have a recommendation?
I really like, those two companies, Elmo and IPEVO, are my recommendations. IPEVO, I think, is probably doing a better job innovating and having a more affordable price points. So IPEVO, Elmo, all of their cameras are like $400 and up. So it's kind of hard to recommend. The IPEVO, there's 3 document cameras that I recommend on IPEVO. IPEVO has one that is only a USB camera. It's called like something 4K. It's only a USB camera. So as long as you're always using it with a computer, that's great. And it's like 99 bucks. So it's affordable. And it tips. So you can spin it towards you. I know I'm upside down, but you can kind of spin it towards you and use it as a webcam, right? So it's kind of more versatile that way. The second one, it goes up a notch in price, but now besides USB, it has HDMI connection as well, which means you can plug the document camera directly into a TV, or more importantly, into a projector. So if you're in a live venue, you don't need a computer in between. You just have the document camera connected directly to a TV or to a computer. And essentially, that's how I have this one connected right now to that TV, is through the HDMI. And then the next level up for IPEVO, which still I think is cheaper than the Elmo, it's now like, we're now in the $300 range or something. But not only does it have those same functionalities, but now it also has wireless capabilities. So you can connect it to, I think it's through Wi-Fi. So it's better than Bluetooth, because Bluetooth can be unstable, especially in a big setting where there's interference, other electrical devices. But I think through a Wi-Fi connection, so you don't even need it connected right to your computer. So for teachers, that's great, because they can carry this around to different students' desks, and the student can show their work up on the big screen, right? So that's kind of a use case for a wireless. So I guess when it comes right down to it, IPEVO is what I recommend.
Cool. Thanks, Monty. I think this question was answered by Don. Will the bouncing help with video too? Bouncing light off of foam core? I think you may have already answered that.
Yes. Yeah. We talked about that with the ring light. So
Right.
When you bounce the light off, what it's going to do is it's going to make the light softer. So it's going to help with shadows. It's like, if you look at the light right now, I'm not having kind of real harsh. I have some shadows, but they're not real harsh. They're kind of soft. If I had this bounced, it would be even better. So it looks better, especially on skin.
Okay, thanks for that. Alyssa says, following up to the scanning question, do you know about the Adobe mobile app for scanning? If so, what do you think about it?
I don't know what the Adobe mobile app for scanning is.
I don't either. I'm stumped on that one too. Sorry. You said you use Cam Scanner, right?
Yeah, that's what I currently use, Cam Scanner, and I've been happy with Cam Scanner. I used one previously. Microsoft used to have one that was really good, but it's I don't know. It's
I remember that one went away.
Yeah, it went away.
I use Turbo Scan. It's okay. I'll try out Cam Scanner. There's something I didn't like about Cam Scanner. I can't remember what it was now.
Yeah, and I might have paid. It might have been $5 or $10 to get the Pro one. I know I don't pay regularly. Maybe they changed their model to a subscription model, but I'm still grandfathered in. That might be one thing. So I can give a half answer to this, which is that I have tried a Adobe scanning app in the past. I don't know if it was the same one, but it was supposed to also help vectorize, right? Take an image and create vectors as well. And so that was like the promise, that you could take a picture with it and turn it into a vector file like that. And my experience with it was that my style of work didn't really work all that well with it. So
I think I think that was an early version of Adobe Draw, if I remember it exactly.
I think so too.
Yeah. And I remember the way if you had anything with midtones, it would read the midtones as vectors, and that was it was either you're working in black and white or that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, let's see. Any other questions we've got?
I want to answer a question that Ed sent me. I don't know if Ed, I don't see him on right now. Ed was on earlier. He signed up and registered for this. He's in Australia, so it's probably 12 hours difference or something like that. But he asked a question around whiteboard apps. And this was the scenario. He said he often works with groups of 8 to 10 people. First time that he's worked with them, and it's just one session. But they're often in pretty highly regimented environments, meaning they can't download apps and they're somewhat restricted to what websites they can go to. And he only has this one session with them, so he doesn't want a huge learning curve on how to use the app or use the technology, but he needs to do some brainstorming and prioritization with the group. And so he was asking about whiteboard apps. And so I said, okay, 5 apps come to mind, or 5 solutions to this come to mind. The first is the built-in whiteboard app within Zoom. Again, not the highest technology, but if they're on Zoom, they can use it, and they already have it. The second one is Google Docs. So several of you and several people in the community have leveraged the real-time editing capability of Google Docs. So you could set up a Google, especially the slides, right? Set up slides and have people create. You'd want to probably create some templates for people, but there's ways to do that with Google Docs, and you could just drop the link in. And they can probably access a Google Doc. I mean, I imagine that would be allowed. The third solution was Google Jamboard. So I mentioned it briefly when we were talking about interactive whiteboards, but Google has an interactive whiteboard application called Jamboard. That's okay. But that's an option. That's about all I'll say for that. And then the 2 fuller featured whiteboard apps that are still website based, so you still don't have to download anything to use it, are Mural and Miro. And they both are comparable. They each do some things a little better than the other. I found generally Mural is a little easier to use and Miro is a little more powerful. That's kind of my 30-second pitch between the two. One of the nice things that Miro has is built-in voting. So a couple of different ways that Miro will do built-in like dot voting, because that was a big part of what he was talking about. You know, there's a big need in his scenario. Was there gets to a point in the meeting where we need to do some voting. And so having that built-in capability, you know, there's lots of ways you can mock it up and you just put a check mark or whatever, right? It's a whiteboard, so lots of ways to come up with, but Miro has that built in. So,
and did I hear you say that Miro has it? Because I know Mural's got that.
I don't know how to do that on Mural off the top of my head, but Miro absolutely has that.
I know how to do that on Mural off the top of my head. There's a button at the top where it says start dot voting session. The other thing that I completely agree with Muddy on every account, Jamboard is like, it's okay. One other thing, just because we are Nova Scribes. So in our area in Northern Virginia, for those of you that are here, federal government, federal contractors are big clients of ours. Envision Freehand has recently been FedRamped. And if you do a lot of government work, you know what that means. And it is gaining some steam, which is unfortunate because, as Muddy said, Mural and Miro are really the two leaders, but that's not necessarily the most important thing to government. Government cares about security and other things like that. So if you have a lot of government clients, I think it pays to learn Envision Freehand on top of that. We had a question earlier in chat about what is a document camera. I'm on the IPEVA website. Let me just show you what it is. It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Actually, this is one version of it. Let's do it. Here we go. So it's, imagine like an old overhead projector, except what it is you've got a camera on a boom. You aim it straight down at whatever it is you happen to be drawing on. And that projects whatever it is that you're drawing onto the screen. And Muddy's actually been using one pretty often. Has he been looking at the index cards that he's got actually behind his shoulder right there, or it was a second ago? He's been using a document cam. So that's what that does. Let's see if we can hit another one of these questions. Let's see. So this one's from Tanya again. Streaming a clip during a Zoom meeting. What do you recommend based on the low resolution issue you had mentioned? So streaming a video clip, what would you say?
I'm so glad you asked this, because this is a really important thing I forgot to mention when we were talking about video resolution. So, you know, in Zoom, and Brian was just using the share screen functionality within Zoom. So this is the good news. When you share screen, it shares as high resolution. In fact, like full HD. It's based on the resolution of the screen that you're sharing. So if you're sharing a screen that is a HD screen, a monitor or something that's a full HD monitor, that's content is going to be streamed. That share screen is going to be streamed at full HD. So so first give the graphic recording scenario and then directly answer your question about clips. So for the graphic recording scenario is during the meeting, as you're live scribing on an iPad and sharing that as your webcam, it might be lower resolution, but it's live and people can pin it and make it bigger, but it doesn't take over the whole screen. And so but then at the end of the meeting, if they want to come to you and kind of highlight your work or show your work or have you tell everybody about it, at that point, you should switch to sharing your screen and share the iPad screen, because now you can kind of take over the screen share capability, and that's going to be a much higher resolution image to share. So I didn't mention that earlier, but that's super important to know. You wouldn't want to just spotlight your video feed, because that's just making your lower resolution. You could see the lower resolution even bigger, but using screen share will give you a better capability. And likewise, in that Brian was talking about one of the share screen, the advanced modes. Another advanced mode within share screen is something where it says content from a second camera. So I could have a second camera, like my document camera, be the screen share. You can use in the advanced tab under share screen, you can use content from a second camera, which will let you connect a second webcam and have that be screen shared. So that would be higher resolution. All right, now to your question at hand. Sharing clips. And so I think what you're saying is sharing video. Help correct me if this is not exactly right, but sharing a video clip during a meeting?
Yeah, so I'm talking basically, I know how to share it and everything, but I have not dared to share it in a large audience where a lot of people are on the Zoom call, because I had some concerns that there might be some technical issues, with the streaming, if so many people are on it. And that, I think that prompted me to ask again, because you had mentioned before the whole camera issue, which is obviously different, but I want to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly. From your experience, if I have 100 people on the meeting or 200 and I click share video that is either online or is saved on my desktop, could I run into an issue if my if my bandwidth, my internet is great, but could it cause any other issues for the participants to watch?
Okay, I understand your question better. So if your participants have poor bandwidth, have low, don't have a very good connection, it could come through a little bit choppy. But there's two things that you can do to help with that. The first thing that you can do is if you're getting ready to show a video, and you can just say, if anyone has a connection that is limited, I would recommend that you turn off your camera during this portion. Because if they turn off their camera, their computer is not trying to stream that video feed. So that's one, is that they turn off their camera. The other is that when you click the share screen dialog in Zoom, and I need to do this first. There we go. All right. When you click share screen, and I think what I can do is take a quick picture of this and drop it on a PowerPoint slide to show you specifically what I'm talking about. All right, so I'm going to share my screen here for a second. All right, so you're seeing my screen, but what you're seeing is just a screenshot, right? So when I pull up the share screen, at the bottom of this dialog, there's two boxes right here that you want to make sure that you check. One says share computer sound, and the other one, this is the important one, is optimize screen sharing for video clip. So Zoom will work its magic to make sure that that video comes through as smooth as possible, as long as you click that. So if I now stop sharing for the moment, cancel, and I share again, and I click those, oh, actually, as soon as I click optimize screen share for video clip, it shows share computer sound automatically. So now if I share, here's a video clip, you tell me how it comes through. I did turn the volume off because it's just me yapping.
Coming to you today with a short video on my top 5
How's it
tips
sound?
for looking good in online meetings. Here we go. So I'm coming to you today from my digital studio.
Oh, pause. Okay. So there you go. That's a video clip, and that's the best way to get the resolution up. But because, bing, light bulb. Here's another thing you could do, which is, what I just had is I had that video full screen, and I was sharing desktop 1. I was sharing the whole desktop, right? So because I want the video to be as high quality as possible. However, if you were to make that video smaller on your screen and you only shared that window, not share the whole desktop, what it means is it's only trying to share a smaller, because it's going to share at the same resolution as what you're showing on your screen. So it won't be as high quality, but it'll be a smoother video for someone with lower resolution. In theory. Haven't tried this, but it all checks out.
Okay, thank you. We will take a first step here.
There we go.
Thanks, Tanya.
I don't know, Brian, if
let's
I'm
see, Laura
click
had
or if I'm clack, but we got about 5-minute warning here.
Yeah, I see it. I see it. Laura had a reference or a resource. limnu.com is a basic whiteboard that can be easily used with Zoom. Not elegant, but it gets the job done. Thank you, Laura. Appreciate that. Ashanti, I answered your question about in chat. Carrie asks, you may have covered this already and I missed it, but is there anything you can do to minimize background noise? I see it in your studio. You have material on your wall. What is that? And Muddy, after you, I'd love to hit this one too.
Yeah, there's 2 things. So first of all is to make sure your Zoom settings are optimized. Zoom actually, if you're using Zoom, Zoom does a really good job with noise cancellation and echo if you let it. You can also turn that off if you've already done everything and you don't want it to you don't want it to process your audio. And in fact, they have a brand new setting. Brian was talking about the latest version of Zoom and their brand new advanced audio set. So you go to audio settings, there's an advanced button, you go in there, you can turn on this HD audio, and essentially if you're like teaching music lessons or you're trying to listen to someone like play piano, you don't want Zoom to be processing that audio at all. You want to hear the full range. And so so make sure your Zoom settings are dialed in. But for a meeting, and to answer your question, to cancel noise, you would want to let Zoom do its audio processing. You want to turn on echo, noise cancellation, and let Zoom do that, because it's amazing how well it does that. The second thing is the physical things you can do in your space. The more flat, hard surfaces, the more echo you will get, especially if you're farther away from your microphone. You may have noticed it when I moved back to my microphone, it sounded more echoey earlier. I'm using the lavalier, so it's close. Flat, hard surfaces, sounds bounce around, and that's what creates. So soft surfaces, if you have carpet, if you have a couch, if you have blind or curtains, all of those things help absorb the sound. If you're really interested in trying to control the sound, you can get noise absorbing cushions. It almost looks like the old egg crates that you would put on a bed, that they make these panels that you can kind of glue on the wall. The cheap version of that is moving blankets. So that's what I have on my wall right here, is a $5 Amazon moving blanket kind of pinned to the wall. And I have a couple other that if I really needed it, I can kind of drape them around me. They make special heavy duty noise cancellation blankets that look like moving blankets, but what's inside them is different. They're more expensive, like $70, $80 each. These are cheap, and they do a cheap job, but they do something. So, and I'm specifically using it because my room, I have a slanted ceiling in front of me, and so it specifically bounces the sound right back at me. If this were a flat wall in front of me, it would be better. But I needed something because I was getting a lot of echo. So over to you, Brian.
Yeah, so you notice that Muddy is using a lavalier. He's using a lapel mic. I'm using this one. And what these two microphones have in common is that they're directional, which is to say they're picking up a sound source that is directed at the microphone. Now check this out. I'm going to start talking, and I'm going to keep talking, but I'm going to lift the boom up and down, and you'll see the difference that it makes just as I move things up and down, just like that. That's all I'm doing, just moving it up and down, just moving it up and down, moving it up and down, moving it up and down. And I've had my kids. The reason I had to get one of these things is because I have 4 kids. And so for me, ambient noise is a real problem. And right now, I mean, you can't hear it, but they're upside, they're screaming and running around upstairs right now. I can hear it, but you can't. This is what I've got here. This is a heavier option. And just to give credit where credit is due, Dean Myers helped me get set up with this. I'm going to drop in the link to it. It's an Audio Technica broadcast headset. So this is, it's a serious headset. And you have to get a little amp to go with it that will take the, and I turned it off. That'll take the traditional audio settings for it, the audio cables, and turn it into USB so your computer can adjust it. But you can adjust the gain, you can move it up and down, and just to really, really dial in the monitor, this has been a game changer for me. Okay. Cool. And I think we've got about a minute left. Anything else? Can anybody either talk fast or we can show some appreciations to Muddy? All right. Well, Muddy, I think that's it. Thank you so much. This was amazing. Yay, everybody.
You're awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you.
What a joy to be here. Thanks for the chance to help you unlock awesome. And this is what it's like to work together. So kind of fun and fast. And, we covered a whole crap ton of information in 2 hours. Imagine if you had an hour all to yourself. So
I just dropped the links to Muddy's hour all to yourself in the Zoom chat. So that's right there and present. And again, just click it. If you've got any questions, he will catch you up months ahead on the learning curve and things that you otherwise have to figure out by yourself. Thanks again, Muddy. Great to see you.
Can I ask you a quick question on that? Is that something where, and maybe with you, Brian, depending on what stuff we want to work out, but is that something where I'd imagine, for example, I might want to have a quick call and then buy some tech or something and then get it synced in and actually work it out with you on the actual call. Is that?
Exactly. I've done that a number of times with clients. Now, if you have a pretty good idea of what you want and you just want to kind of get confirmation, or I need a specific recommendation on this thing, we can easily do that in 15 minutes. I've had a couple of people who are like, we need to figure out what I need first. And in that case, they booked an hour, but
Yeah.
we've stopped at a half hour
Right.
and then picked up once the
Cool.
stuff arrived and did a half hour of install. So,
Perfect. Awesome.
but yeah, setting up a 15-minute call is a good first way to do that.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks again, Muddy. Thank you for being awesome.